Now, Washington Mornings on the Mall.
105.9 FM.
At AM 630.
WMAL.
7:07 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman, joined on the phone now by our legal analyst and our good friend, Joe DeGenova. Joe, how are you?
Doing fine, Brian. Good morning to everyone.
All right, well, you're sounding alert and cunning and sly, and so we need to tap into all of those things about you. A very interesting story. Lay out the story about the guy who, the kids who tweeted.
Well, there was a high school near the Boston area, Glasser High School, and some kids, 5 kids there who play sports, tweeted out racist comments over one of the Capitals players, Joel Ward, who scored the game-winning goal in Game 7. He's black, and they put out some racist tweets about it. The superintendent of schools there said that they were going to be punished, either suspended or taken off their sports team for some time. And
because they used the N-word.
Because they used the N-word.
And we had a caller who said, look, if you use the N-word, it's automatically a violation of someone's civil rights. And we were thinking, well, I don't know. Is that true or is that not?
I don't believe it.
So what do you say, Joe?
Well, as a matter of law, it is not. It is a word that has become unacceptable in American language for cultural and politically correct reasons.
Right.
But it is not illegal to say the word. It is not illegal to write the word. Whether you like the word or not, using it is not illegal. It's in the dictionary. Mm-hmm. So the question becomes, what is the right to actually punish these kids? This is actually a very open legal question. The school may be on very thin ground here.
Really?
It's one thing to scribble that word in the hallway of the school. It is another to do it off campus on Twitter, regardless of its public nature, when it is completely unconnected to school activities. I think it's a close question. I'm not sure that it's punishable.
Well, what if a federal employee tweeted out something racist like that and their boss saw it?
They have codes of conduct in the federal government.
Do they have codes of conduct when you're playing high school sports?
They do, unless they have a formal written policy. That is not a code of conduct you can enforce without having it and people agreeing to abide by it.
Okay.
Codes of conduct are by and large voluntary unless you are an employee, and as a condition of employment, you accept the code of conduct. In the case of the kids going to a public school where you are required to go to school or you will be a truant, there's only so much you can impose on people, even if it's offensive language. I mean, so it's an interesting legal question. I'm not sure the school can impose discipline.
So reprehensible, we can all agree, but perhaps not illegal.
Yes, and perhaps the best way to treat these kids would be a wonderful front-page article in the student newspaper talking about them and their troglodytism.
Right. Well, it's certainly not illegal to do, but the question is whether or not the school can take away privileges that they have at school, because they're not suspending them or giving them detention at school. They're taking them off of school teams, which is not necessarily a right.
No, but the point is, once you have something set up that the school sponsors, which is these teams, they're paid for by the public, their parents pay taxes.
Right.
There are only limited circumstances in which people can be denied access to these teams, and if it's, for example, if they were planning to assault other players on the other teams and that was discovered, that would be a violation of the basic rules of the game. This is totally unrelated to their performance or anything else. It's an interesting legal question. I'm not sure the school is right, but I don't blame the school for trying to make an example of these kids for what they said and did. But this may be offensive speech, but it's not illegal and it's not unconstitutional speech.
Now, I mean, I don't know what the situation is at the school, but if you're calling certain people the N-word, and that could cause some problems if you have black people on the team or other minorities on the team.
Yes. And that may be the basis for some form of discipline if you can show, if you could make out that there was in fact an intent to do that with regard to the school, but they didn't do that. They were talking about an a National Hockey League player, and a public game that everybody watched on television having nothing to do with their school.
Right. Now, there's one other angle to this. There was a employer, I think it worked for one of the fast food chains, and he was fired. They fired a guy who said similar things on Twitter Does the employer have the right to do that when it comes to things that you say on Twitter?
Absolutely, because as part of your employment contract, even if you're only an hourly wage earner with anybody, if part of their company policy includes not tweeting about things like this in order to protect the name of the company, that's fine. There's no problem with that as long as it's part of the employment agreement. In other words, when you sign up or you're hired, they give you a piece of paper that says, these are our policies. If you want to work for us, you accept this. Once you accept that, you are bound by those rules.
All right, one last question on this. So a violation of civil rights would be some type of discrimination based on your race, through housing, through education, things like that, right?
That requires public action. In other words, the public accommodations law make it clear that anybody who is engaged in interstate commerce, there's that wonderful phrase, cannot discriminate against anybody. When you open up your door and you're engaged in interstate commerce, you cannot discriminate or do anything. I mean, you might be able to say some nasty things on your business walls, but that's not necessarily a violation of the civil rights laws. But if you discriminate against people, in other words, you carry out conduct that denies them a service or a privilege, that is illegal.
So using the N-word and then taking some action would be a crime.
Not necessarily a crime, but it would be a violation, certainly, of various civil rights laws.
I'm with you. Okay, fascinating case. Hey, I want to talk really quick about what's going on down at Gitmo, where KSM and some other 9/11 co-conspirators are on trial. I mean, it wasn't long ago we were hearing, we're going to close Gitmo and we're not going to try the people there in these tribunals. But indeed, that's exactly what's happening, and it's turned out to be sort of a chaotic process down there.
Well, this is, I don't know if Brian, the older Brian there, probably remembers the Chicago 7 trial.
Yes, I do.
During the Vietnam War with Judge Julius Hoffman and all of those people, where disruption was the key to getting out the story about their antipathy to the Vietnam War. These guys yesterday, the other day, this was basically mild-manner obstructionism. Nothing of any true disruption. The judge seemed to be able to handle it. I think the most disruptive conduct was from the defense attorneys, both in and outside the courtroom, with their comments about the commissions themselves and what they believed to be the mistreatment of their clients. The judge handled it very, very well. And I think, over the course of time, this is going to be one of those things. This is what happens when you conduct show trials. Drone attacks are looking better every day.
All right, little birdie told me you're getting some kind of an award.
Well, I'm just absolutely humbled and honored. My alma mater, the University of Cincinnati, the Cincinnati Bearcats,
right,
where I went to school from 1963 to 1967, is honoring me for my alleged contributions to the practice of law and to the public education about the rule of law. And Victoria and I are going out there next week for a 3-day bash, which is going to culminate with a great event at the great Cincinnati ballpark on one evening. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well deserved.
Thanks.